Hey guys, it's been a second since we last did a video, but I'm glad to be back. So we talked about communism, and so we talked about communist theory. And so at the start of the video, we zeroed in on this book, The Communist Manifesto by Marx and Engels. And in this book, Marx lays out his communist theory. And so communism, remember, is a conflict theory. And what that means is that we have two classes of people in society, with the proletariat and the bourgeoisie. And so what starts to happen is that as these groups struggle and they have conflict, essentially the proletariat will come up, they will create a temporary dictatorship, equality is reached, and the state will vanish. However, the very first communist revolution actually doesn't start in England as Marx predicts. It starts in Russia. And so we see Marx expecting the communist revolution to start in a capitalist industrialist country. However, Russia is not that. We get Lenin and his Bolsheviks, who are professional revolutionaries. They take the ideas of Marx and they adapt them to Russia. And so that's why we call Lenin's ideas Marxist-Leninist rather than just purely Marxist. And so Lenin is able to take over, or is able to overthrow the Tsar in October of 1917. And so after the Tsar is overthrown in October of 1917, we get a 3-year civil war. So during this 3-year civil war, Lenin introduces a policy called war communism. And so what war communism does is it takes the ideas of Marx and it makes them rather extreme. And the whole focus of war communism was to supply the Red Army. This leads to rebellions and it leads to riots and protests. And so Lenin realizes this is not sustainable anymore. And they introduce some more right-wing policies. And so this movement towards the right, these policies are called the New Economic Policy, or the NEP. And so what the NEP does is introduces some more private ownership, and farmers are able to sell their surplus goods. And so eventually Lenin passes away. And as he passes away, we see Stalin take over. And so the Communist Party under Lenin and Stalin was able to justify to themselves that they were democratic because they had a constitution, they served the majority, and on paper they were a democracy. However, in actuality, power was in the hands of the party. And the great example of this is with a policy called democratic centralism. And the way this worked is that everyone in the party had a say. However, when decisions were made, that was final. And so Stalin is able to use that to remove and eliminate anyone who speaks out against him. And so we see that technique of dictators: control participation and force and terror. And some other ways that Lenin is able to maintain his power, Stalin is able to maintain his power, is through a secret police. It's through the Holodomor, the Ukrainian famine, when he basically makes a man-made famine in Ukraine by exporting all their grain and allowing none to come in. He's able to create his cult of personality and so on. And so all these are ways that we see Stalin able to consolidate his power. Please go over your notes. If you have any questions, shoot me an email, and have a great day.